Hello, my name is Sruli Rosenfeld, a grandson of Tzvi ben Sion Rosenfeld, Zechrono Levracha, and a cousin to Reb Tzvi Kramer, and of course to our dear fearless leader, my uncle Reb Chaim Menachem Kramer. So I was asked to say a few words on the upcoming Yom HaDehilula of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Zal. And I'm not worthy, I'm not Roy, I'm not fit to say anything about Shimon Bar Yochai. I don't claim or can even assert that I have 1 ounce of understanding of how great Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was. But I did see some words that from Rabbeinu Zal, and of course in the Gemara as well, that I thought I could share with the Olam, that perhaps, hopefully it resonates, hopefully it resonates and can provide a little bit of hisayrus, inspiration, maybe even clarity on the upcoming Yom Hilula, the day of Simcha, tremendous Simcha of Lag BaOmer. So, everyone asks, what's so special about Reb Shimon? Why Reb Shimon? Why Reb Shimonin, we call him in Breslov, as the tremendous chiba, Reb Shimonin, not just Reb Shimon. Why him? We have the Avos, Imois, right? The Shiva Rayim, Avram, Yitzhav, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David. We have all the great Tanoim, Rabbi Akiva, Yochanan ben Zakkai, and it's for some reason Reb Shimon Bar Yochai has a day that's dedicated to him. He has a day that the entire Yidden, all of Judaism, all of Yiddishkeit, everyone, every sect, including Hasidim, Svardim, Litvish, everyone celebrates this day. And we have to understand what's so special about Reb Shimonin, that it's a day that we bring simcha to everyone. And further, how does this day affect us personally? What's our connection to this day? And what can we take away from this day? What can we hopefully be able to be zeicha to receive the shefa, to receive shefa on this day? We know that this day is so special. There was a story, I forget what his name, but I think his name was Rabbi Avram, maybe, that used to say Nachem. In benching, Nachem is a tefillah of mourning. It's Mesabel on Yerushalayim. So during the year, there are people at night to say it. But this Yid said it even on Lag BaOmer, and I think it was the Arizal who told him that you will not live out the year, because on this day, it's a day of only simcha. It's a day of pure happiness, pure celebration. Why? What's so special about today? So I'm just going to give a few words, share a few words and thoughts, ideas, that is just my take, and hopefully it's MS. And like I said, it hopefully will be Messiah, those that listen, and it's Hashem should provide me the right words. I'm talking about such a great tzaddik, a great Tana, a Tana Likai, the godly Tana, and it should only be L'Tayelis. Recently I was learning Gemara in Sukkah, the Gemara, famous Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Yirmiyah says in the name of Shimon Bar Yochai, that Yachel Ani, I have the power, lifters kol ha'olam kulim and adin. I can exonerate every person from judgment. Miyom shenevresi ad ata, from the day that I was created until now. Reb Shimon was so great, and that he is willing to take on everybody's averis, and he can defend them in din, and he can get them exonerated and a free pass to Gan Eden. And then he goes further and says, with my son Elazar, I can exonerate and I can defend every person from the beginning of time until today. And then he adds one more person. Yosem ben Uzziyahu, if I had Yosem ben Uzziyahu as well with us, we can exonerate everyone from the beginning of time until the end of time. Rashi says a very interesting point. He says, who was this Yosem ben Uzziyahu? Right? Shimon we all heard about. Reb Elazar ben Reb Shimon we also know, the great Tana, the great Tzaddik, learned with Reb Shimon in the Ma'ara, in the cave for 13 years, went through tremendous Yisurin, reached tremendous heights, learned with Eliyahu Navi twice a day, like we know, him and Reb Shimon. So we can understand maybe how they have this tremendous koyach, these chusim, to be able to exonerate and defend all of Klal Yisrael from the day of creation till today. But who is this Yosem Uziyahu, this last leg, who can then take it till the end of time? So Rashi says, Tzadik Haya, the Onov Yosem Mishar Melachim. Rashi says that this Yosem Uziyahu was a tzaddik, but not just a tzaddik. He was an Onov Yoser. He was the biggest Onov from all kings. I think that means even David HaMelech, even Shlomo HaMelech, right? We're talking about Yosem Uziyahu, who was during the first Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi explains why, because his kibbud av was so incredible that even when his father was a leper, he was a Mitzayra, he stood in the place of his father, filled the place of his father, but yet always credited his father with everything, every judgment, every din, every law, everything. He didn't take the Keser Malchus while his father was alive. He deferred to his father. But it just showed his great anivus. So we see something very powerful here, that we know there are tzaddikim, of course, tremendous tzaddikim in all the generations. Chas v'sholom, we can't minimize any tzaddik. We don't know who's greater than who. But one thing from Rashi we do see is that the greatest tzaddikim, the greatest who have the ability to not only help themselves, but help Klal Yisrael, is the tzaddik, the Onov Yoser, the greatest Onov. It reminded me of a shtickle in the Kutei Maran, a piece by Rabbi Nachman. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's greatest midah? What was his greatest attribute? And that made him the leader, that warranted, that made him be worthy of becoming the leader of Klal Yisrael, the greatest Navi ever, the one to go up to Shemayim and bring down the Luchais, the Torah. So Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Dalet, he brings that Moshe Rabbeinu, when after Klal Yisrael sinned with the Egel, Moshe Rabbeinu went and davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, please forgive them. And v'im ayin, if not, mechenina misifrecha asher kosofta, then please erase me from your Torah. All the Mefarshim ask, how could Moshe Rabbeinu threaten HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or even challenge HaKadosh Baruch Hu to erase him from the Torah? It seems to be a bit of a Moshe Rabbeinu who's such a moon and b'tachin HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do something, so let it be. What was Moshe Rabbeinu? What was he saying? What was he trying to do here? What was he trying to accomplish by challenging Hashem? So Rabbi Nachman explains, and he says that Moshe Rabbeinu, we know, he said, "V'nachnu ma." Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate Onov. He reached the Madrega of Anivus, where he was able to be mispatel, nullify himself to the point of Ein Sof, of becoming one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that is the tachlis of the Yid on this world. The world was created yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. That's Malchus. Malchus is the yesh. And our whole tachlis, our whole purpose on this world is to bring ourselves to a point where we can nullify and become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one with Ein Sof. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinite. We can't explain it because we are living in the world of yesh. But there are great tzaddikim that have that ability, that have done it. Very few and far in between. But the tzaddikim amitiyim who are able to self-nullify themselves, live in this world of Gashmius, but yet be able to at times nullify themselves, self-nullify, and become one with ayin, become nothing. Moshe Rabbeinu reached that madrega. Moshe Rabbeinu told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he said like this, he says, Hashem, we know that a chacham has the power to be mechaper for the entire generation. We see that with Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that I have the power to exonerate everyone from beginning of time till now. With my son, with Yosem Uziyahu, we have that power to exonerate everyone. Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem, Ish chacham v'chaper, the Rebbe brings, Reb Nachman brings, that if I was a Chacham, I should be able to exonerate all of Klal Yisrael from the sin of the ego. If you're telling me now that I can't, it must be that I failed. I am not that perfect Anav. I am not that perfect tzaddik, and therefore I don't have the ability to forgive. Why? How Moshe Rabbeinu says, where is that? What led to my downfall? Why? What led to me not being that perfect, humble person? He said, erase me, erase me from your Sefer Torah. In your Sefer Torah, when we look in the Torah, how many times does it say, V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe leimer? Hashem spoke to Moshe. The Torah says, V'yikam Navi Reb Yisrael Moshe. There wasn't a Navi as great as Moshe ever, who spoke to Hashem panim al panim. The Torah tells us how Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim to receive the Luchos. It's almost impossible for a human being living in the world of Gashmias for it not to get to their head. Moshe Rabbeinu is reading this in the Torah, he sees it, he knows everybody's reading about it, he knows everybody sees it, and yet Moshe Rabbeinu was still able to achieve a level of Nachrumah, where he was self-nullified to the point that it didn't affect him whatsoever. But now Moshe Rabbeinu came to the realization, he's telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it must have affected me. It must have, to some very slight degree, have impacted my humility. And therefore, that's why I am not roid now to defend and exonerate and bring a kapara to the whole of Klal Yisrael. So, therefore, he says, erase me from your Torah, because I'm not the same person I was before I was in your Torah. I'm not at that same level of humility. So Hashem says, you're right. And Hashem conceded, and he forgave Klal Yisrael. We see the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Tzaddik HaEmes, and that is who we're talking about in Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Nachman, in his Hakdama to Likutei Maran, famous Hakdama, where he talks about how Reb Shimon Bar Yochai came into the room of the Chachamim b'Yavne, right? There were Tanoim sitting there in Yavne, and they were all looking at the future and the bleak future, saying how Torah will be forgotten amongst Klal Yisrael. And Rav Shimon says, no. He got up and he says, Ki lo yisi shachach mipi zaroi. It's a pasuk in Vayelech, Parshas Vayelech. The Torah will not be forgotten. And Rav Nachman says, Ki lo yisi shachach mipi zaroi. The last letters spell Yochai. Rav Shimon was saying, B'schus, the Zari of Yochai, Ki lo yisi shachach mipi zaroi, that the Torah will not be forgotten, mipi zaroi, from the mouth of Zaroi, and the last letters being Yochai of that pasuk. He's saying from the Zari of Yochai, the Zera of Yochai, which is who? Rav Shimon, because Rav Shimon's ben Yochai, the Torah will not be forgotten. It's an incredible statement to make, that b'schus him, he's saying, look at me, because of myself. He's telling all the Chachamim there, the greatest of greatest, and he's saying b'schus me. In the Gemara we just quoted before, Rav Shimon bar Yochai talks about himself, how great he is. I can pater the entire world. I can exonerate the entire world, and no one will have to stand and face the day of judgment. He says that the Zohar Kodesh, which is, we know, of course, authored by Rav Shimon bar Yochai, it says in the Zohar that when the pasuk says Yeroeh kol zechorcha es penei ha'adon Hashem, we know that there's an obligation for every Jew 3 times a year to go up to the Oila Regel, and the pasuk says all males Yeroeh kol zechorcha to go see penei Hashem. The Zohar writes, Da Rab Shimon bar Yochai, that who is this Pnei Ha'adon Hashem? Who is the Pnei, the face of Hashem? It's Rab Shimon bar Yochai. Dihu Dechura min Dechranya, the male of all males. Boilis Chazor Kamei. We have to go see him. It's also again another statement that when looking at it superficially, one would say, wow, what a bold statement to make. It seems to be a bit conceited, a person to talk about himself this way. And a person, when we come to the conclusion that this does not represent humility, this is not anivus. But the answer is the same as of Moshe Rabbeinu. Reb Shimon achieved that level of ayin, that level of ein sof, of pure nullification. Making these statements was not anything more. He wasn't championing himself and how great he is. It was saying fact. And Reb Shimon, because of who he is, the tzaddik emes, he's there to tell it to us because he's trying to tell us that he's there to help us. I've reached the ultimate. I have achieved everything I can, and I need to, and now I'm here just to help you. And with that, he was zeicha to bring us the Zohar HaKadosh. Reb Shimon, as Reb Nachman brings in that Hakdama, says that what's going to be the Torah that's going to take us out of Galus, it's the Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar is the Yafkin min Galusa. The Zohar will take us out of Galus. There were two people that went up, and Reb Nachman continues in the Hakdama. Ir v'kadosh Shmai Nochis, that a great man, we'll say a malach, descended from heaven, is Rashi Tevis Shimon. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai descended from heaven, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, who went up to heaven and brought down the Luchos, brought down the Torah. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai went up to heaven, went up to Shemayim, and he brought down the Zohar HaKadosh, the Panimius HaTorah. I remember Yaakov Meshechti used to always tell, I've been there a number of times, and he always very much encourages people, myself included, to read the Zohar, learn Zohar. He says, you can't imagine, in this, particularly now in this time, where the Zohar has become so revealed and available and accessible to all, what it has on our neshama. This Torah is for us so that we can be zeicha to bring about the geula and to rectify all of ourselves. Reb Shimon was here, he brought the Zohar so that our neshamas can all achieve its tikkun. And that's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us such a great tzaddik, such a great person who achieved the highest level. He was a tzaddik emes. He was Penei A'adain Hashem. Going to the Me'orah of Shimon Bar Yochai is equivalent, says Reb Shimon, to going to be Mekabel Penei Shechina, Yeiraka B'Zchuchat Penei Hashem on the Shalish Regalim. Because Reb Shimon achieved a madrega, a level where he became one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is its source, right? Which was who we all really are. We just aren't able to shed that Gashmius. He was zeicha to shed it, to achieve a level where he became such a nothingness that nothingness is now Ein Sof. We know that Reb Nachman, of course, Reb Nachman ben Simcha is Gematria of Shimon Bar Yochai, and Reb Nachman said that the Zohar took us until his time and will continue, but with him, the Nachal Neveh Mekar Chachma, we are going to achieve the Geula. Reb Nachman added one more dimension, not just the Zohar, but of course with Tefillah. Reb Nachman said, Garmain Zachis Tefillah, Moshe, David, Yosef HaTzadik, were both all died during Shabbos by Mincha, which was a time of Ravid Ravin. That is the time of that's the highest point of Shabbos. It's the point of Shabbos where we're all receiving the greatest light from Ravid Ravin, the Ratzain of all Ratzainis. We have a chance to tap into that Ratzain. It's a time of Tefillah. Vanis Tfilasi L'cha Hashem Eis Ratzain. It's a time of Tefillah. Ein Sof, to be able to tap into Ein Sof and connect, we need both the Torah and Tefillah, both Nigla, V'Nister, Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah of Shimon Bar Yochai, and then of course Tefillah, which is of course the Gematria of Moshe, Yosef, and David, who all also introduced, David HaMelech introduced of course the concept of Tefillah to us through Tehillim, and Rabbi Nachman, as we know, who was very, very much encouraged his Hasidim and everyone to daven, his spoilers, talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times, every day, and it's the combination of Torah and Tefillah that's going to bring about the Geula. So, I think what we're trying to say here is that the day of Lag BaOmer, it's a day that we are celebrating because Reb Shimon reached the highest level a human being can reach. He reached that level where he, like the Zohar HaKadosh says, he was equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah says, like Navi Yisrael Moshe, and Navi like Moshe never existed again. But somebody as great, Possibly, sounds like it did, as a Zohar attests to. And that's what we're celebrating, because now not only did we get a Shavuos of Matan Torah, we also have a Lag Bo'emer of Matan Torah, not just of Nigla, but now of Nistar, of Zohar. That influences, impacts every single Jew, because it's the Torah HaNistar, all the Hasidic Torah today, all the Torah that's being spread around the world, whether it's Torah's Breslov, Torah's Kamarna, Torah's Ishbitz, Torah's Reb Tzaddik, it all is rooted in Torah's HaZohar, Torah's HaNistar, from Rav Shem Bar Yochai, and then of course revealed by the Arizal. And it's that Torah that we are celebrating, that Madura, that light, that Zohar, that light that is the fight which fights the forces of darkness, Chashecha, Shichecha, right, which is forgetfulness. We're forgetting our te'elas on this world. We're living in a world with gashmias. It's hard to remember all the time. Shichecha is also the letters HaChoshech, darkness, the darkness. The Zohar is the antidote to that. And for that, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We thank Shimon, and of course, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us this Zohar, this light, which can illuminate the darkness. And Eibusha should help, Taka, that we should all be Zeicha, to be able to tap into the greatness of Reb Shimon, connect with him. There's a beautiful tefillah in the Kutei Tfilis, Chelik Beis Mem Zayin, where person can see how we talk to Reb Shimon as if he's our father, our Rebbe, because every Yid is so much, especially today, is so much influenced and impacted, and can be helped by Reb Shimon. We talk to be Zeicha, to celebrate properly, like Bo'emer, to be in a state of only Simcha, and we talk should be Zeicha, to celebrate with Reb Shimon, Rabbeinu Zal, all the tzaddikim, and of course, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, and B'mheir v'yameinu, Amen v'amen.